Good morning, sir.
Hi, Chris. Good morning.
Let's talk about January 6th. I knew it was going to be wild. I just didn't know what was going to go on there. And I do want to give you a chance to respond to your friends at the Arizona Republic, or have a story about how you and Gosar are credited in video with organizing the Trump crowd on the day of the riot. So please, let's start there, and I want to hear your side of that story.
Well, of course, that's a big fat whopper. It just didn't happen. I don't know what else you could say.
Yep.
That's just a lie. We didn't organize a riot. We didn't organize the rally. We were focusing on the same thing that I've been focusing on for 2 months, which is we want an independent forensic audit of what happened in Maricopa County in Arizona. That's what we've been focusing on, and so we've tried other mechanisms to get that done, encouraged other people to help, and then when we knew that January 6th, of course, was going to be the day when the vice president counted, and we knew that the Democrats had used Title III of the United States Code for 3 different presidential elections in this century to try to prevent the counting of votes. So we said that's our ticket, and so that's what we were focusing on. And to be frank with you, I knew there was going to be a couple. Actually, there was a couple rallies there that day, but I did not participate and didn't organize and did not attend.
We just had a discussion in the first hour about how bad the press is. So they put that headline, and then they put the picture of the federal officer with his gun, because they really wanted to drag Andy through the mud on this one. So I think it's I think they're rather cute over there. Now, what happened that day? What was going on? Tell me about what was going on in the House, and then tell me when all this stuff hit, what was going on in your world.
So we have been. I prepared my speech, and I was focusing on getting documents. So, Chris, I had a stack. I had 2 big hunkin' stacks of records that they would not allow me to put into the congressional record. One listed over 32,000 names of registered voters who registered illegally or unlawfully in Arizona. So I had that, and then I had a list of 1,000 different affidavits and declarations of people alleging impropriety. So I had that there. So I was focused on getting ready for that. So we go in there, and we had met before, as we do when we know that there's a big thing going to happen. And I was working with Jim Jordan, actually the minority leader McCarthy, to organize who was going to speak for the Republicans in what order. And so the minority whip, Steve Scalise, we said would go first, and then Jim Jordan, and then I was going to go third, and then Jim. So that's really how it went. And then Paul was going to speak, I think, fifth. And then the way it works is we get 5 minutes, they go 5 minutes, 5 minutes, 5 minutes. Paul made the objection, and Ted Cruz made the Senate side objection, and away we went into Mike Pence. Then recess, which is the way you're supposed to do it, and senators go back to their side. House stays in our chamber, and we begin the 2-hour debate. And we started the 2-hour debate, and then sometime I later learned my staff was evacuated before we actually even started the debate from my office. All in my building were evacuated and sent to another building, and then what happened next is we didn't know that. We didn't know anything about that. We were just doing our debate, and then Paul was speaking for a couple minutes, and then they recessed him. They stopped him, and we recessed. And the Capitol Police guy came up and said, "Well, all of the Cannon building, which is my staff, and has been evacuated because there's been a breach in the Capitol." And we're like, "What? A breach of the Capitol? What do you mean by that?" And then, so we just kind of were hanging out there for 10 minutes, and they said, "Go ahead and start again." So Paul started finishing his, and he finished his statement. And about the time he finished his statement, all of a sudden, Secret Service they can't remember whether they told us to take out the gas mask then or not. But anyway, they Secret Service came and took the chain of leadership. They rushed them out of the building, out of the chamber, to some undisclosed secure location. The rest of us were in there. The guy says, you can duck behind the chairs if somebody breaks in, and then underneath your seat is a gas mask. And so we've issued tear gas, and you can start hearing down in the rotunda off the Capitol. You could hear a big crowd, and it sounded, quite frankly, like you would hear normally if when tourists are there when we're not closed down because of COVID. And so that's really kind of what happened, and it kept getting closer and closer, and some of our members decided to put on their gas masks, and then. Hey,
a quick question: are there always gas masks underneath your chairs?
Yes, yeah, there
okay.
always is. I had no idea. I mean, you learn something new every day. That's one of the things I learned is, hey, there's gas masks here. But anyway, Chris, they then started. We heard him move through the Statuary Hall, move through Will Rogers Hall, and then they start pounding on the doors to try to get in. And that's when our room filled up with probably, I don't know how many, 15, 20 Capitol Police officers. And as far as I know, they never actually breached the House chamber. And because at that point, they just came in and scurried us all out. And we walked through stairwells and hallways I didn't know existed to pop up in the one of the office buildings, and they stuck us in a big room, and others, like that building was always secure, and so that there'd never been a breach there. But it was, in retrospect, if you look at it, if people would have come in armed, wanting to do violence, they could have wiped out a third of Congress. Because they overwhelmed the Capitol Police, and I mean now it was an interesting event, Chris.
So what should have happened that day, right? Well, in relation to the people that came in, and what are we finding out about the people who were running around the halls? Were they all just pissed off Trump voters? What are we finding out on the back end? What are you hearing?
Well, we're hearing it was a mix. I mean, I think it's going to take some time to sort the cards out here. I mean, we know that there were Trump people there. I mean, there's no doubt in my mind that there were just pissed off Trump people there that had come in, and then there were other people that were definitely not Trump people. I don't know who they were. I mean, there's allegations, and they're going back and forth, but they're trying to find him out. And I saw a report today that one guy that got arrested for having a gun and ammunition and stuff there, his stepfather said he's definitely not a Trump supporter, nor am I. And so you had everything from people who were Trump supporters who were mad, and others who went to protest on the steps of the Capitol, to people who just run of the mill that like to get in a fight and cause trouble, and then you probably had some insurgents, some Antifa or BLM type folks. I mean, we don't know. I mean, it's just this. They're trying to sort through what Capitol Police did right and what they did wrong. They're trying to find out who was there, but they're making arrests. I've seen that they're making arrests all over the country right now.
Andy, can I keep you for one more segment, please?
Yes.
Awesome. I appreciate the time. I know it's a really crazy week right now, so I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Hey, we're hanging out with Congressman Andy Biggs, finding out what's going on, what happened in D.C., and what's coming on. There's a week of they want to try to impeach the president here, and we'll talk about that also with Andy before we're up. Wake up, Tucson, 10:30 The Voice. Brother Jew at the top of the hour. All right, we're doing an 80s Monday with the great Ray Allen and you. Wake up, Tucson, 10:30 The Voice. Let's go right back to the phones with U.S. Congressman Andy Biggs. Andy, thanks for holding, man. I appreciate it.
You bet, Chris.
Hey, what happened in the actual thing? We know people are very upset with Michael Pence and what happened on the Wednesday the 6th. So in relation to the actual what happened in Congress on Wednesday, what are some of your misgivings of what happened that day?
Well, so I never thought Mike Pence, the vice president, had authority to unilaterally decide that he wasn't going to count the votes of a certain state. That would have been different if state legislators would have sent multiple slates or alternative slates for him to look at. And legislatures didn't do that. There were groups of people, Americans, who said, well, this should be a Republican slate. But there was never any true alternative slate. And so he was kind of in a box on what he did. And so what we were trying to do is, and I was encouraging Arizona's legislators, and I know I talked with legislators from everywhere from Nevada to Georgia to others, trying to get at least letters from legislators, a majority of the legislature, to say, this is not ours. We can't get called into a special session because of whatever our state's rules are, but we want a different slate of electors. And that never happened. And so he was had his hands tied. And then what we were trying to do is we were trying to have the debate for the first time, because election integrity in a constitutional republic is vital. And I don't think, you have something like 80% of Republicans, 75, 80, whatever it is, percent of Republicans don't think it was stolen. They don't have any trust in the election system. You've got 30% of others, Democrats and independents, who feel the same way. So you're pushing probably a little over half the country doesn't think the election was conducted in a fair way, and we could never get a debate on that anywhere because the other side suppressed everything, which is why we printed out and brought in all the evidence that I brought in, which was literally I think 5,000 pages of everything from the registrations that were unlawful to the declarations and affidavits, because people keep saying, where's the evidence? And I brought it in. And I said, this is the evidence you guys have been asking about. This is it right here. And
what is the big dynamics in D.C. why that evidence never came to light? And, the president kept on saying, release the Kraken and all whatever the hell he was saying. What happened? Yeah. What's the dynamics going on to D.C. that never really came to light?
So there's two or three things. Number one, the vast majority of court cases, and I want to say I heard there were a total of 60 or so, they were dismissed usually based on one of two issues: no standing. They said whoever was suing didn't have standing to sue, or they said there was no that it was too late, that it was laches, that they couldn't bring the lawsuit, that they should have brought it before the election. And then I know of some suits that were brought before the election where they said it's not right. You can't bring the suit until after the election. So the judiciary kind of shut people out and never heard a substantive argument, never let this type of evidence come through. So they were dismissing cases, in my opinion, for the wrong reasons. They should have allowed additional evidence. The second thing is, we needed state legislatures, and most state legislatures, not just Arizona, most state legislatures had put in a procedure years ago where the Article 2, Section 1 power, the manner of choosing electors, basically boils down to it's on autopilot. So the legislature, if they determine that there's an issue, they can't get themselves back in unless they have 2/3, which in Arizona you're not going to get because it's a bare majority of Republicans. Or you need the governor, and the governor wouldn't call them back in. And so they did what they could. They issued a subpoena. They had hearings that were legitimate. They issued subpoenas to the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors. Those were legitimate. And then the board basically thumbed their nose at the legislature and then worked to try to drag out that lawsuit, because they're still in lawsuit, by the way, Chris. In fact, they're going to have a hearing this week on that. And the legislature may hold the board in contempt. They wanted to just drag this thing out past January 6th.
Sure.
That's what the board was doing. So those are the dynamics there. And then Congress's role, we were fighting both internally with some Republicans, but the role by the Constitution is we're to attend a joint session of Congress where the vice president opens up the the electors, the envelopes containing the electors from each state. And so there were lawsuits filed trying to get interpretation, et cetera, to add to that. I mean, we filed and joined the lawsuit ourselves in Congress. I think 150 of us.
So our mutual friend David Schweikert said Thursday that the Republican Party, to the months leading into the election, were out hustled and out lawyered by the Democrats. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think I would.
Yeah,
I think I would. And I would say it this way: this has been, and David probably didn't go into this, but I mean, this has been. They have one lawyer. They filed suits in, I want to say, 36 states to manipulate and change election laws that legislatures had created, and including Arizona.
Did Mike Pence betray the president?
I don't believe so.
Okay,
I do not believe so. I mean, I've talked to him not in the last week or so, but he was going to do everything he possibly could. I do not believe he betrayed the president. So
now we have an impeachment. I assume this is to kill Trump, that he never runs again. But when you look at constitutionally what the grounds for impeachment, not that it matters for Democrat votes, but do they actually? The case is pretty flimsy, isn't it?
Oh, it's totally flimsy. I mean, so Chris, don't forget that they're going to introduce today. Okay, so that's flimsy. We can get into that. High crimes and misdemeanors. There's no high crime or misdemeanor done here. I mean, that is just ridiculous. But don't forget that today they are introducing a resolution to encourage Mike Pence to organize the cabinet to remove President Trump pursuant to the 25th Amendment, and they're going to give him 24 hours to do that. Now, they're going to try to do that while we're in recess in what's called a pro forma session. There'll be maybe 5 people on the floor, and I've hustled, and you're going to get 3 or 4 members of the House Freedom Caucus there that will object to that. And but they're going to vote. We're going to vote on that tomorrow. And if Pence doesn't respond, then on Wednesdays they're going to try to cram an impeachment process, a full impeachment process without committee hearings or anything like that on Wednesday. They want to get that through Wednesday. This is a week before Trump's going to leave office.